In the heart of a crowded space station, a young girl reaches for a simple bag of fruit, but when her jacket slips, a secret no one was meant to see tumbles into the light. A living creature thought lost to history, a tiny dragon glowing with fire in its scales. From that moment, every shadow hides danger. Every step is a race against time, and the fate of a rare life rests in her hands. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. Under the artificial glow of Aurora Station, Lyra walked with steady steps through the nearly empty marketplace. The hum of the power grid blended with the faint buzz of refrigeration units, a rhythm she had grown used to. She clutched a small credit chip in her hand, the thin plastic warm from her touch. Tonight she carried a list for Mrs. Halden, an elderly neighbor recovering from surgery. Fruit was at the top of the list, rare and expensive in a colony that floated far from agricultural worlds. The air carried a sweet scent that felt out of place among metal walls and recycled oxygen. Crates of exotic produce stood stacked neatly, their labels glowing in several languages. Lyra inhaled deeply, knowing this scent alone could remind anyone of open fields, even if those fields were thousands of light years away. She stopped at a stall where the vendor, a tall shop clerk with gentle eyes, greeted her with a nod. "Late hour for shopping," Soren said, his 4 eyes blinking in calm rhythm. His name badge reflected the stall's light, written in both common trade and his native script. He began scanning the fruit she had placed on the counter, his movements smooth and efficient. Lyra smiled shyly. Mrs. Halden needed centurion pears. She says they help with her pain. She shifted the weight of her canvas bag, pulling her jacket tighter as she spoke. The sound of fabric rustling was louder than she expected in the quiet shop. Soren's ridged face softened into a smile. "You have a kind heart. Few young ones spend their evenings helping others." Before Lyra could reply, a faint chirp came from inside her bag. Her stomach tightened. She coughed loudly, hoping to cover the sound, but she noticed Soren's ears twitch. His scanning paused. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his tone curious but not unkind. "Just my stomach," Lyra answered quickly, patting her midsection. "I skipped dinner." Her voice was calm, but her pulse raced. The bag shifted slightly. Another chirp followed, sharper this time. Lyra's breath caught. She reached to steady the bag, but her fingers trembled. The seam tore. A small creature tumbled onto the polished floor. Scales shimmered under the lights, flickering between emerald and gold. Delicate wings stretched wide before folding against its sides. A forked tongue darted from its mouth, tasting the air. Its golden eyes reflected the glow of fruit displays, curious and unafraid. Soren froze. The scanner in his hand hovered motionless above the counter. His skin paled. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Is that a Stellan drake?" Lyra dropped to her knees, scooping the tiny dragon into her arms. The creature chirped indignantly, nipping at her fingers, but then pressed against her chest as if seeking comfort. Her heart thudded painfully. "Please," she whispered, looking up at Soren, "do not tell anyone." Before Soren could answer, a harsh crackle filled the air. The station's announcement system came alive, echoing across the marketplace. "Attention residents. Routine inspection by the Interstellar Wildlife Authority is in progress. All sightings of unregistered fauna must be reported immediately. Penalties include heavy fines and relocation." The words sank into Lyra's chest like stone. She tightened her arms around the drake, whose warmth seeped into her jacket. Soren's gaze flicked between her, the dragon, and the security camera mounted in the corner. Tension hung thick in the air. Then, with deliberate calmness, he reached beneath the counter. Parentheses. A small red light on the camera blinked twice and went dark. "You have 20 minutes before the system resets," Soren said quietly. He packed her fruit into a bag and pushed it across the counter. "That creature is rare, nearly extinct." "I know," Lyra admitted, clutching the drake closer. "I found him in a smuggler's crate. They wanted to sell him. I couldn't leave him there." The tiny drake calmed in her arms, curling against her collarbone. The glow from his scales dimmed, as if he understood the need for quiet. Soren hesitated, his 4 eyes studying her with unreadable intensity. Then he leaned forward. "The next patrol passes this sector in 15 minutes. Go to level 7, Maintenance Tunnel D. Knock 3 times on the yellow panel. Someone will be waiting." Lyra's brow furrowed. "Why are you helping me?" His expression remained steady. "Because extinction is a wound the galaxy cannot heal. Now go." Her throat tightened with gratitude and fear. She pulled the bag of fruit over one shoulder and tucked the drake carefully into her jacket. She could feel his heartbeat against hers, rapid and fragile. As she turned to leave, Soren called after her. "What is his name?" Lyra paused at the door, her hand resting against the cool metal frame. "Spark," she said softly. "His name is Spark." She stepped into the corridor. The walls stretched high, marked with color-coded stripes that guided residents through the maze of Aurora Station. Her footsteps echoed, quick and nervous. She pulled her jacket tighter, feeling Spark shift against her chest, his claws pricking gently through her shirt. Lights flickered overhead. A pair of workers passed by, barely glancing at her. She kept her head down, whispering to Spark to stay calm. The station felt colder tonight, its corridors endless and metallic, but in her arms was warmth. Life. Something precious enough to risk everything. The voice of the announcement system echoed again in the distance, reminding residents to report what they found. Lyra walked faster, clutching her secret. She had no idea where Tunnel D would lead, but she knew one truth with all her heart. Spark was hers to protect, and no matter what waited in the shadows of Aurora Station, she would not let him go. Lyra moved quickly through the narrow corridors of Aurora Station, her heart pounding against her ribs. The steady hum of the life support system and the distant clang of machinery filled the silence, but every sound felt sharper tonight. She clutched her jacket tight where Spark rested, his small body warm and restless against her chest. The little drake stirred, pressing his wings against the fabric, and she whispered urgently, "Stay calm. Please stay calm." The lights above flickered in long intervals, leaving patches of shadow where Lyra darted between service doors and supply crates. The marketplace was far behind her now, but the memory of the announcement echoed in her ears. Inspections, fines, relocation. They would take Spark away and lock him behind glass. The thought made her jaw tighten. Her wrist display flickered as a small message blinked across the screen. She recognized the sender code. Soren. 3 words appeared. "Keep moving." Almost there. Relief swept over her, but only briefly. A faint whir of servos echoed down the corridor. Patrol drones. Their red sensors swept in slow arcs, scanning for movement. Lyra ducked into a recessed doorway, clutching Spark tighter. The dragon let out a faint chirp that sounded far too loud in the hollow corridor. She held her breath, waiting as the drone hovered closer. Its sensor beam brushed across the wall, just inches from her feet. Then, after a tense moment, it drifted away. She waited until the sound faded before slipping out and moving again. The maintenance level smelled of oil and damp metal. The walls were marked with yellow stripes and faded warning signs. She found the panel Soren had mentioned, painted dull yellow and set low into the wall. Her knuckles rapped 3 times. Silence stretched. Lyra's stomach tightened. She raised her hand to knock again when the panel slid open with a hiss. Inside was a dim room lined with machinery, humming softly. A figure stepped forward, tall, with pale hair tied back, and eyes that glowed faintly from augmentation implants. "You must be Lyra," the stranger said quietly. "Come inside before anyone sees." She hesitated, clutching Spark protectively. "Who are you?" "Dr. Mirren," the figure answered. "Systems engineer by cover, xenobiologist by truth." The voice softened as their gaze fell on the bundle in Lyra's jacket. And that must be him. Spark poked his small head from the folds of fabric, blinking golden eyes at Mirren. His forked tongue flicked, testing the air. Mirren let out a breath filled with awe. "A Stellan Drake. I never thought I would see one alive." Lyra stepped inside cautiously. "Soren said to come here. He said you would help." He was right. Mirren sealed the panel behind them, locking the room in quiet shadows. "You did a brave thing, rescuing him. But the danger is greater than you know." Lyra's arms tightened protectively around Spark. "I couldn't leave him. They were going to sell him." Mirren nodded slowly. Smugglers prize creatures like this more than credits themselves. His scales alone could fetch fortunes. But there is more at risk. The authorities may claim they protect wildlife, but many work with collectors. If they find him, he will never see freedom again. Spark shifted, stretching his wings slightly before curling back against Lyra's chest. His soft chirp filled the space. Mirren's gaze softened, and for a moment, the tension eased. A sudden noise shattered the stillness. Heavy boots against the corridor floor outside. Voices low and stern. Lyra's pulse jumped. "Security sweep," Mirren whispered. "Stay behind me." The panel rattled as someone tested the door. Spark hissed, a faint wisp of smoke curling from his nostrils. Lyra held him tighter, whispering calming words. Then came a voice from outside, calm but edged with greed. "We know something unusual was seen in this sector. Better to cooperate. Reports of glowing scales. Rare, isn't it?" Lyra's throat tightened. Spark pressed closer, sensing her fear. Mirren motioned for silence, standing firmly between Lyra and the door. The voice outside continued. "You could hand it over and share in the reward. No questions asked." Lyra felt her chest tighten. It was not just station security. Someone was after Spark for profit. The footsteps receded slowly, leaving only silence. But the warning was clear. They were being hunted. Mirren turned, eyes sharp. "You must leave this level. They know. Spark is marked somehow. I can feel it." Lyra frowned. "Marked how?" Smugglers implant biological trackers into valuable creatures. It allows them to follow their prize anywhere. That explains how quickly they appeared. Her breath caught. She looked down at Spark. "So they can track him here, right now." Mirren nodded grimly. "But there may be a way to remove it. I need time, and we do not have much." Lyra's fingers brushed Spark's scales, feeling his warmth. She whispered to him, as much as to herself, "We'll find a way. I won't let them take you." The hum of the machinery filled the silence. Lyra stood taller, fear burning into determination. She was only 13, but in her arms was a life that needed her. Mirren stepped closer, voice steady. "You are brave, Lyra, but this is only the beginning. Shadows hide many dangers, and you must be ready to face them." Lyra nodded. The corridors of Aurora Station stretched dark and endless outside the hidden room. But with spark against her chest and courage kindling in her heart, she stepped into the unknown, ready to face what waited in the shadows. The hum of Aurora Station carried a different weight now. Whispers traveled through corridors, and shadows seemed to follow Lyra wherever she walked. Spark shifted inside her jacket, restless, his scales flickering faintly even when he tried to remain still. Dr. Mirren walked at her side, calm but alert, while Soren trailed close behind. All three knew the truth. The smugglers had returned, and they would stop at nothing to reclaim the Drake. Every corner felt like a trap. Groups of workers moved quickly, avoiding eye contact, as if sensing something dangerous in the air. The intercom repeated vague alerts about unauthorized activity, but Lyra understood the real threat. The smugglers were already inside the station, hunting Spark with precision and patience. Dr. Mirren paused at a junction, consulting a handheld device. The faint glow of the screen lit her sharp features. "They are not searching randomly," she murmured. "Their scanners are tuned to something inside him. The tracker is active." Lyra's heart tightened, "So they know exactly where he is." "Not exactly," Mirren corrected, "but close enough. We need to mask his signal before they triangulate us." Spark poked his head out, golden eyes wide, forked tongue flicking nervously. His chirp echoed softly through the empty hall, and Lyra stroked him gently to calm him. "We have to find a way to help him. We can't run forever." Soren's deep voice broke through the silence. "The hydroponics bay. It has experimental crops, including Ryelian plums. I read they can accelerate digestion in reptilian creatures. If the tracker is inside his system, that might flush it out." Mirren's gaze sharpened with sudden hope. "Yes, that could work. If we feed him the plums, the tracker might pass naturally. But the smugglers will expect us to move. Every step we take puts us closer to their eyes." They set off toward the bay, keeping to service passages. The air smelled of oil and recycled air, heavy and metallic. Lyra's stomach twisted as she thought of Spark glowing too brightly, giving them away. She whispered to him softly, "Just a little longer. We're almost safe." But the station was alive with danger. Twice they ducked into alcoves as armed figures in plain clothing passed by, their voices low but urgent. "The beacon moved this way," one hissed. "Check every room. We cannot lose it." Their weapons glinted in the dim light, and their footsteps echoed long after they were gone. Finally, they reached the wide doors of the hydroponics bay. The moment they stepped inside, the air changed. It was warm, damp, filled with the heavy scent of plants and soil. Rows of tall greenery stretched into the distance, bathed in glowing lamps that mimicked sunlight. Spark perked up instantly, squirming from Lyra's hold to sniff the air with excitement. His scales glimmered brighter as he absorbed the artificial rays. "Keep him close," Mirren warned. "He shines like a beacon in here." They moved quickly down the aisles, searching for the experimental section. Unusual plants surrounded them, some glowing faintly, others moving as though alive. Soren pointed to a cluster of small trees heavy with deep purple fruit. "There, section E17. Those are Ryelian plums." Lyra carefully picked several, the sweet scent clinging to her hands. She held one out to Spark, who sniffed it cautiously before nibbling at the skin. Then, with sudden hunger, he devoured the fruit, juice staining his tiny snout. But before relief could settle, a sharp voice rang out across the bay. "There they are!" Figures emerged from the shadows, weapons raised. 3 smugglers, faces grim, moved between the plants with practiced ease. One, tall and scarred, stepped forward. "Hand over the drake and no one gets hurt." Lyra's heart pounded. Spark hissed, wings flaring slightly, his glow intensifying. Mirren moved in front of Lyra, who postured protective. "He does not belong to you. Leave now before station security arrives." The scarred man laughed harshly. "Security works for credits. We pay better than anyone. Give us the creature." Spark let out a piercing chirp. His scales erupted with sudden light, flooding the bay with brilliance. The smugglers shielded their eyes, stumbling back as heat shimmered in the air. Lyra held him close, whispering encouragement. "It's all right. We're together." The moment of chaos gave them their chance. Soren grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her toward a side path. "This way. Cargo Bay 3 is closer. We can lose them there." They ran between rows of towering plants, sparks of light trailing as sparks glow lit their escape. The smugglers shouted behind them, weapons firing harmlessly into foliage, leaves sizzling as energy bolts tore through the air. Lyra's lungs burned, but she refused to stop. Spark clung tightly, his small body vibrating with energy. Each beat of his wings echoed against her ribs. Finally, they burst into a dim corridor leading to the cargo sectors. But the smugglers were relentless, their footsteps pounding close behind. The echo of pursuit chased them through the metal halls. They reached the heavy doors of Cargo Bay 3 just as another group of smugglers appeared from the opposite end. Trapped between 2 forces, Lyra felt her chest tighten. The scarred man stepped forward again, his greedy eyes fixed on Spark. "It ends here. Hand him over. No more running." Spark's glow dimmed slightly, his energy spent from the defensive burst. Lyra tightened her arms around him, fear and determination clashing in her heart. She met the smuggler's gaze, refusing to yield. Mirren whispered fiercely, "Stand your ground, Lyra. Trust him. Trust yourself." The cargo bay loomed behind them, wide and echoing, shadows stretching across the floor. The smugglers closed in, weapons raised, confident in their victory. Lyra swallowed hard, her hands stroking Spark's scales. She felt his small heartbeat racing against hers, fragile yet powerful. With every breath, she knew this moment would decide everything. The hunt had led them here. The smugglers had cornered them. But the fight for Spark's freedom was only beginning. The cargo bay stretched wide and silent, its vast floor filled with crates and towering machines. Lyra stood near the center, Spark clutched against her chest, while Doctor, Mirren, and Soren kept close. The smugglers had circled them, their weapons raised and their faces lit with greed. The scarred man's voice cut through the air, steady and cold. "Hand him over. You cannot escape this time." Spark shifted uneasily, his scales faintly glowing. Lyra's arms tightened, her pulse thudded in her ears. She remembered every word Soren and Mirren had spoken, every warning about smugglers and their hunger for wealth. But she also remembered Spark's soft chirps in the quiet nights, his warmth pressed against her jacket, and the way his golden eyes trusted her completely. "He is not yours to take," Lyra said firmly, her young voice carrying across the metal bay. The smugglers laughed, but the scarred man's smile faded when Spark's glow began to intensify. The little drake's wings flared, shimmering with a radiance that filled the space like sunlight. Heat rippled in the air, forcing the smugglers to shield their faces. One stumbled back, cursing under his breath. "What did you do?" the scarred man demanded, stepping away from the rising light. Dr. Mirren's calm voice carried through the chaos. Ryelian plums. They trigger the defense of Stellan drakes. You should have known. The smugglers struggled to aim their weapons, blinded by the brilliance. Soren seized the moment, slamming his fist on the emergency alarm. Sirens wailed, lights flashed red, and the computerized voice of station control rang out. Security breach in Cargo Bay 3. Containment protocols initiating. The smugglers panicked. "We need to go," one of them shouted. "Security will seal the bay." Their leader's face twisted with fury, but he knew the risk. With a final glare at Lyra, he turned and fled, his crew close behind. Their footsteps echoed, fading into the distance. When the glow subsided, Spark's scales shifted color. The emerald and gold shimmer dulled into a plain brown. He looked like nothing more than an ordinary reptile. Lyra stared in awe. "He can hide himself." Dr. Mirren nodded. "Unnatural camouflage. Now their scanners will not detect him." Station security stormed the bay moments later, weapons drawn, eyes sharp. But they found only Lyra, Soren, Dr. Mirren, and a dull-scaled creature resting quietly. The smugglers had vanished. The next hours blurred. Lyra answered questions she barely remembered, sitting beside Spark, while officers searched records. Her mother was called, rushing in with fear and confusion in her eyes. But as the truth unfolded, her expression shifted to pride. She held her daughter tightly. "You risked everything to protect him," she whispered. "And you were brave." When dawn cycle arrived, the extraction vessel docked at Aurora Station. Sleek and silver. It was designed to carry rare species safely to sanctuary worlds. Dr. Mirren stood beside Lyra, her expression kind. "The time has come. Spark must go to a place where he can grow freely, with others of his kind. He will be safe there." Lyra's chest ached at the thought of letting him go. Spark seemed to sense it too. He clung tighter, curling his tail around her wrist and nuzzling her cheek. She whispered softly, "You will be free now. That is all I wanted." Soren placed a hand on her shoulder. "What you did was more than kindness. It was courage. You gave him a chance at life." Dr. Mirren crouched to meet Lyra's eyes. "You are young, but you have shown the heart of a guardian. Our program for junior conservationists welcomes protectors like you. If you wish, you can learn with us, and one day you can visit Spark again as part of the Guardians." Hope flickered in Lyra's chest. "I could see him again?" "Yes," Mirren said warmly. "You saved him. He will remember you always. But now you can learn to save many more." With trembling hands, Lyra lifted Spark one last time. She pressed her cheek to his scales, whispering words only he would hear. "I will see you again. Be strong, be free." Spark chirped softly, licking her hand before stepping into the protective case prepared for him. As the vessel's doors closed, Lyra stood beside her mother, Soren and Mirren, watching through the viewport. The ship detached smoothly, drifting away into the black expanse. A single point of light moving toward the sanctuary. Her mother slipped an arm around her shoulders. "You did the right thing. Sometimes love means letting go, but letting go does not mean the end. It means trusting the future." Lyra nodded, her gaze fixed on the fading ship. She could still feel Spark's warmth in her arms, still hear his chirps in her memory. Sadness mixed with pride, but beneath it all was a fierce determination. Mirren's voice was gentle. "Remember this, Lyra. Saving one life may seem small, but to that life, it means everything." Lyra smiled faintly, repeating the words, "Everything." The stars shimmered beyond the viewport, endless and bright. Aurora Station continued its orbit around the gas giant. life inside its walls carrying on. But for Lyra, the world had shifted. She was no longer just a girl helping her neighbors. She was something more, a protector of rare lives, a guardian of the extraordinary. As the vessel disappeared into the distance, Lyra felt a quiet promise rise within her heart. Spark was gone for now, but their bond remained. The future was wide as the stars, waiting for her steps, and she knew one truth with absolute certainty. Even the smallest act of compassion could change the course of galaxies.